I'm gonna put it on there. There it goes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Ida B. Wells Black History Convocation. Hosted by the Senior Class Student Government Association, I am Ijanae Williams, and I serve as the Senior Class President. And this is Melanie Battle, my Senior Class Vice President. Today, we are gathered to celebrate and remember the legacies of those who once came before us. It is extremely important that as we celebrate Black History Month, we take time to acknowledge the sacrifices that our ancestors have made and the commitment they had to a brighter future.
Thank you for joining us today. We will now welcome Jeremiah Washington of the Morgan State University Choir as he will lead us in our national anthem, followed by a visual presentation on the importance of Black History Month.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Racing the silent sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Every February, the United States and Canada recognize Black History Month, but its founder hoped for a different future for Black history. Carter G. Woodson, the Harvard-educated historian who established Black History Month, hoped Black history would become so ingrained in American history that Black History Month would be unnecessary. But in 1926, when he began Negro History Week, the second week in February, he had two objectives: to prove to white America that Blacks had played important roles in the creation of America and deserved to be treated equally as citizens, and second, to increase the visibility of Black life and history, at a time when the media was portraying the Black community negatively with anti-Black racist imagery, like Black caricatures, blackface minstrel shows, and films like the 1927 hit The Jazz Singer. In 1976, Woodson's Association for the Study of American Life and History, which sets the annual theme for every Black History Month, lobbied for Black History Week to become a month and got President Gerald Ford to make the first proclamation. Every president since then, except for Donald Trump, has proclaimed the new theme annually. Congress officially recognized Black History Month in 1986. Black History Month is often controversial, with calls for Whiteness History Month or Confederate History Month, to others, including some Black people, saying it's outlived its usefulness or that it's antithetical to American values. But despite the official designation, there are no federal requirements for teaching Black history in school curriculums. And on an average, less than 9% of history class is spent on Black history. In some states, it's completely ignored.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.
Good morning. I will be reading Praise Song for the Day by Elizabeth Alexander. Each day we go about our business, walking past each other, catching each other's eyes or not, speaking or about to speak. All about us is noise. All about us is noise and bramble, thorn and din, each one of our ancestors on our tongues. Someone is stitching up a hem, darning a hole in a uniform, patching a tire, repairing the things in need of repair. Someone is trying to make music somewhere. With a pair of wooden spoons on an oil drum, with cello, with boombox, harmonica, voice. A woman and her son wait for the bus. A farmer considers the changing sky. A teacher says, "Take out your pencils. Begin." We encounter each other in words spiny or smooth, whispered or declared, words to consider, reconsider. We cross dirt roads and highways that mark the will of some, and others who said, "I need to see what's on the other side." I know there's something better down the road. We need to find a place where we are safe. We walk into which we cannot yet see. Say it plain that many have died for this day. Sing the names of the dead who brought us here, who laid the train tracks, raised the bridges, picked the cotton and the lettuce, built brick by brick the glittering edifices that they would then keep clean and work inside of. Praise song for struggle. Praise song for the day. Praise song for every hand-lettered sign, the figuring it out at kitchen tables. Some live by love thy neighbor as thyself. Others by first do no harm and take no more than you need. What if the mightiest word is love? Love beyond marital, filial, national, love that casts a widening pool of light with no need to preempt grievance. In today's sharp sparkle, this winter air, anything can be made, any sentence begun. On the brink, on the brim, on the cusp, praise song for walking forward in that light. Thank you.
Thank you, Naima. At this time, we would like to welcome our university's historian. Please welcome Dr. Edwin T. Johnson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do a little bit better than that. This is our last observance of Black History Month for the 2023 year. Good morning and happy Black History Month. Go ahead, you were right. Turn to your neighbor and say, "I am Black history." Turn to your neighbor on the other side and say, "I am Black history." Here at Morgan State University, we intentionally and unapologetically pause on the first Thursday of every month to acknowledge, observe, and celebrate Black history. So here, Black History Month is Black History Year. We celebrate Black History Month every day of the school year. In the month of February, every Thursday, there's a Black History Month observance. So this is our fourth and final observance, which is hosted by the Student Government Association. So give the Student Government Association a round of applause. As you saw in the video, what we celebrate today as Black History Month began in 1926 as Negro History Week. What some of you may not know is that there were students here at Morgan who actually petitioned the Negro Public Schools of Baltimore City and took folders of Dr. Woodson's research and went to the individual schools within Baltimore City and began doing presentations for the school children on Black history. And that was one of the first organized celebrations of Black History Month. So you all as Morgan students, especially as student government leaders, are a part of that legacy. Few years ago, 1988, 1989, students here at Morgan were unhappy with what was offered in terms of education regarding African American studies and Black history. The university responded by creating the University Convocation series, which I mentioned earlier. So the first Thursday of every month, we celebrate Black history. And that has been happening here at Morgan State University since the fall of 1989, which was my sophomore year here. So I'm so excited that this tradition, which is so important, continues. For those of you all who have been keeping up with current events in the news, you know there's a lot going on with critical race theory. There are actually professional educators that have lost their teaching licenses and certifications because they are teaching Black history. So here at Morgan, we are a part of Black history. Black history is all around us. All of you who are taking classes in Northwood Shopping Center, it is so important that you know that history. If you haven't already done so, please stop by the Sit Down Protest Movement permanent exhibit and learn about our history as Morgan State University. For the civil rights nonviolent protest movement did not begin February 1st, 1960 at North Carolina A&T. It began here as early as 1947. So give yourselves a round of applause for being part of Black history. Thank you.
Before you go, Dr. Johnson, we do have a few questions for you. And if anyone has any questions in the audience, please feel free to use the microphones down here. My first question for you would be, why do you believe that students should host Black History Month convocations at their universities, and what is the importance of attending a Black History Month convocation?
First and foremost, you all are earning liberal arts degrees. Regardless of what your academic discipline is, you have a foundation in the liberal arts, which means you are being trained to be free members of society, which means that you have a responsibility to make the world a better place. Some of the things that you enjoy right now as a student at Morgan State University did not exist 25, 30 years ago when I was here. But they're here because the students came before you, did what was necessary to make sure that the university continued to improve. And there's a long, long, long legacy of Morgan students actually speaking truth to power and agitating the system to make sure that we have an outstanding second to none educational experience and opportunities here at Morgan. So it's so important that you understand that history and you take your role moving forward, because the Morgan State University that exists 20 to 30 years from now should be so much better because of what you all do right now.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
You're welcome.
Next, as a Morgan alum, you have witnessed injustice and advocacy. How would you connect your experiences to events in what we call Black Wall Street in 1921?
Oh, that's interesting. So, Black Wall Street is one of countless stories that are largely unknown. And rather than talk about Black Wall Street, I'd rather share with you about Gallows Hill. Anybody familiar with Gallows Hill? Nobody? Really? Get out of something to write with. So, believe it or not, 3 of the 4 HBCUs that exist in Maryland today at one time were all in downtown Baltimore City. Morgan State University was located at 44 East Saratoga Street. What became Coppin State, what became Bowie State University were all within the 3 to 5 block radius of a community called Gallows Hill. Gallows Hill was a middle-class African-American community that prospered in the same manner as Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The white community became very concerned, and I'm doing that in air quotes, that this very prosperous African-American community began to encroach on important white spaces. The courthouse, the post office, City Hall. The mayor at that time was a man named Preston, and he used his mayoral power to declare the entire community a slum, and everyone was evicted. If you ever drive up St. Paul Street going downtown, right before you get to Franklin and Saratoga, the median strip does something really weird. It kind of goes like this, and then it goes up by Franklin. All of that grass and that weird shaped median at one time before the turn of the century was an African-American community, and Morgan was walking distance from that site. So I share that story with you to understand that throughout the history of this nation, not just in Tulsa or Rosewood, but there are countless other communities, including Baltimore City, where African Americans have organized, pooled their resources together to create educational, cultural institutions, libraries, businesses, and the political system and structure that existed intentionally dismantled it so that there would not be progress. So when you look at a lot of what's happening in Baltimore City today, specifically in highly populated communities with Black and brown people, some of it is systematic, and that's why it's so important that we know that history. So take some time after this is over and look up Gallows Hill and Preston Gardens. That was wrong.
It was a word. Thank you. Today, people may compare the new Northwood Shopping Center to Black Wall Street. What are your thoughts of its new environment compared to when you attended Morgan?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I'd like to go further back, and I would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Morgan students from as early as the 1940s and 1950s. Student government, Greek-led organizations, SNCC, I'm trying to think, McConkey, help me out, CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, Civic Interest Group. A lot of those student organizations are actually on that permanent exhibit right by the canteen. But that was a shopping center that for the most part was off limits to Black students. So even though Morgan students lived right across the street, they couldn't enjoy the businesses and the opportunities that were available in Northwood Shopping Center. So folks your age, and it's so important, they weren't people my age, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old students organized, did sit-in protests. They called them sit-down protests, not sit-in. They filled the jails, filled paddy wagons, until those businesses adjusted their policies and those businesses in that shopping center became open to Morgan students and people of color as a whole. So for you all to be taking classes in the new Jenkins building in the Earl G. Graves School of Business and Management is really a full circle, and we have Morgan ancestors that I'm sure are looking down on you all, and their hearts and spirits are just jumping for joy, because this was something that they fought for but did not realize while they were students. But you all had that opportunity, and those are some amazing state-of-the-art, technologically advanced facilities that you all get to enjoy because of their struggle 20, 30, and 40 years ago.
All right, thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
One more question. The phrase of today's society is generational wealth. What are your thoughts about Black families achieving this goal?
Well, generational wealth is so important, especially when we started off, for the most part, as property. And it's so important that we look back at people like Matthias de Sousa. We look at folks like John Punch. and really have an understanding for what was possible and what is possible if we figure out how to navigate the system. But I would say something that I would like to see more of here with you all students is more workshops and training on entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Because it is the dream of our ancestors that each generation should not have to start from scratch. There should be something passed on from one generation to the next, so each generation gets a better opportunity at the so-called American dream.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
All right, next, please join me in welcoming Mr. Anthony Pryor, author of Obi Man and the Tragedy of 1921 Tulsa. Anthony Pryor has over 25 years of experience in the field of human resources and office management, working for both profit and nonprofit organizations. A graduate of the University of Maryland, Mr. Pryor is currently the Director of Human Resources at the STARS Scholars Network. In this capacity, he is responsible for developing and executing human resource strategies in support of the overall business plan and the strategic direction of the organization. Mr. Pryor is a member of the American Society of Association Executives and the Society for Human Resource Managers. He is also the recipient of the Greater Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia chapters of the Society of Financial Service Professionals. This award was given for his outstanding achievement in the advancement of ethics within the business community. Finally, Mr. Pryor is a published author, speaker, and historian. Please help us give a warm Morgan welcome to Mr. Pryor.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I would first like to thank Ms. Williams and Ms. Battle for inviting me here today. I would also like to thank all of you for taking your time to come here as well. Thank you. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a gentleman that you probably have never heard of. His name is Obi Man, and he was just as important in 1921 Tulsa as Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers were important to Atlanta and Mississippi back in the mid to late 50s. The only reason why you haven't heard of Obi is for the same reason you didn't know until about 10 years ago about the 1921 Tulsa massacre itself. That reason is because no one talked about it. We'll get into that later. Let's first discuss Obi himself and why he is important to Black American history. Obi was born in the late 1800s. 1898, I believe, is his date of birth. He was born in Texas, and his family moved to Oklahoma when he was a child. Oil was found in Oklahoma. This was one of the first great migrations of Black Americans from the Deep South into the North. Oklahoma was a territory, it wasn't a state. So that's where they had moved all the Indians because it was not much there to really pay attention to. But of course, when oil was found, the Indians were moved again. Obi was an angry man. He saw how Blacks were treated, he saw how Indians were treated, and he didn't quite understand it. As a young man, and his family was grocers, we'll talk about that as well, Obi used to make bank runs. The family hated for him to make bank runs. He always wore his best suit. He took a pillowcase and put all the money in it, even though they had bags for the money. And he would cross the tracks. There were tracks that separated Black Tulsa from White Tulsa. And he carried a pistol. He hoped someone would rob him, hassle him. They never did. Obi was 6'4", and just as wide as he was tall. So that never happened. much to his unhappiness. Then World War I happened. Obie joined because a lot of men wanted to prove that they cared about the United States, they were willing to die for the United States. And Booker T. Washington actually said that if black people really got into the war effort, then white people would understand that they cared. So Obie joined. He was assigned to the 92nd Division, the Buffalo Soldier Division. The U.S. Army was segregated. Bullets didn't care what you looked like, but the U.S. government did. And Obie wanted very much to fight. He didn't want to just have latrine duty or building duty. He wanted to fight. The only way you could fight was if you were assigned to the French Army, because you couldn't fight with the U.S. Army. Luckily for Obie, he survived, even though he saw a lot of battles, and he won the highest honor that the French had to give. Now, like the rest of America, Tulsa was segregated. And the town of Greenwood was where all the black people lived. Now, Greenwood took the separate but equal doctrine and turned it on its ear. It was very entrepreneurial because it had to be. It had restaurants, barbershops, pool halls, theaters, schools, you name it, and it had it. Obie's family, of course, were grocers. They owned the largest grocery store in Greenwood. Every dollar that was spent in Greenwood was turned over 8 times because you couldn't spend it anywhere else. Booker T nicknamed the area of Greenwood Negro Wall Street because it was so prosperous. As you might imagine, such wealth and prosperity met with disdain, jealousy, and envy from many of its white neighbors across the tracks. And when a young black man by the name of Dick Rowland was accused of trying to rape a young white girl who was 17, the intent from white Tulsa was to hang Rowland. Now, Dick was known as Diamond Dick, and he used to sneak around with white women a lot. And so the attitude was, whatever happened to Dick, Dick deserved it. And so Black Tulsa went along with its daily activities. There was a prom that night, and everyone was getting ready for that. The Dreamland Theater, it's a 700-seat theater. They were in there watching a show. Now, Obie realized that usually when someone says that some white girl was raped or was accosted in some kind of way, they didn't just stop with hanging the guy, they would destroy his town. Rosewood, Florida is a good example. And he knew that Greenwood wasn't safe. And so he organized men in Greenwood and set up barricades. He knew it was coming, and came and did. Now, while Dick was saved, Greenwood was not. They even had military planes dropping turpentine bombs. And planes aren't just sitting around for you to jump in and take off with. You got to know how to fly them. You got to get permission to use them. So even though it couldn't be proved, the government was involved as well. Now, you haven't heard of Obie, and that's because no one in Greenwood or in Tulsa would talk about what had happened. White Tulsans wanted to keep it quiet because they had a lot to lose if it got out. Black Tulsans were traumatized, the ones who survived. So as a result, no one talked about it at all. And also, if you did talk about it, it could result in someone coming to visit you at night. So they didn't talk about it at all. Now, I was commissioned to write this book by the great nephew of Obie. He lives in Southern Maryland. His name is Michael Hayes. Now, the one thing you'll get from this book is that Obie fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And as such, he was constantly in danger. He was constantly ridiculed, but still he talked the talk and he walked the walk. And he threw himself into every fight and every battle. Obie did survive, but he lost a lot. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Pryor, we do have a couple questions for you, if that's okay. I know you talked a lot about Oklahoma in that time, so are you able to explain furthermore about what happened in Tulsa in 1921, for those who don't know what Black Wall Street is?
Sure. Black Wall Street was, that was Greenwood, the Greenwood district. And as I said, white Tulsa and black Tulsa was separated by train tracks. And the folks in Greenwood were forced to stay in Greenwood, and so they created a community which took care of its people. Like I said, they had everything, you know, from theaters to restaurants, you name it, they had it. Because of that, it became prosperous, even more so, because money wasn't taken out. Like you could spend $1 here, but you might also spend $1 in New York. Greenwood wasn't so. The money you spent in Greenwood stayed in Greenwood. So because it was so self-contained, it boomed. And it was nice. It was nicer than some of the houses that were even in white Tulsa. And so these people were educated. They had their own schools. They had everything that you needed. Dick Rowland, Diamond Dick, as he was called, he was a playboy. He was an athlete. He was tall. He was good looking. And he took advantage of it. He wore a diamond on his little finger. That's why they call him Diamond Dick. And some people say that he and Sarah Page, that's the elevator operator, had been involved. But in any case, he came onto the elevator, he stumbled, he tripped, and he stepped on her toe. She screamed. There was a clerk down the hall who heard her scream. He immediately thought the worst. He called the police. Dick panicked and took off. The sheriff arrested Dick Rowland for protection, mainly, because neither Sarah nor Dick had any animosity towards each other. They both told the same story. She said he stepped on her toe, that's why she screamed out. He said he tripped, that's why she screamed out. So the sheriff was fine with that. But the white newspapers fuel the fear, the rhetoric. And so Dick was arrested just to protect him. And that night, you had so many white folks who had crawled themselves into Tulsa. Many didn't live in Tulsa, but they showed up, and it just blew up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I do have one more question. What inspired you to write this book in this day and age, and how does it connect with current events?
As I said, Michael Hayes is a great nephew of Obie. Mm-hmm. And he approached me about his great uncle. And it took me about 2 years worth of research to actually find out about him. There are things written about Obi, but it's not in one place. They're all over the place, it's scattered. So it took me about 2 years to pull everything together. But that's why I wrote the book initially, was because he wanted me to. However, with the political situation that's going on today, there's a lot that happened back then that's beginning to happen now. And the scary part is that many people don't know their own history, and they don't think it can get that bad. And but it can get that bad. There are laws that are being passed now in small towns, and it's really setting us back. Education has been watered down to the point where you got a what do they call it? The pipeline, from school to prison pipeline. That exists. They actually figured out by fourth grade how many people are going to go to jail and how many people might go to college. And it's designed so that if you really don't have the necessary skills to go to the next level, that you will end up in prison. I mean, how else are you going to eat? So I the book took on a more important meaning for me. It wasn't just writing about this guy's great uncle. It was just, as I started reading this stuff, I started realizing that there's a lot of things that happened back then that's happening now. And even though we have the internet and we have all this information right at our fingertips, there's still a lot of things they don't talk about. And as a result, as they said, and who said it? One of the presidential candidates said by 2050, the financial, how did he put it? He said that Black America's income would be zero. That's 30 years from now. You'll definitely be alive. I might be alive. And so you have to ask yourself, where are all these people going to go? You know, I mean, there are no jobs, there's no money. You're definitely educated. So why is the income zero? So it's really important to know that there's a force out there that's still working to undermine all of us. And if we don't pay attention and we don't wake up and get educated, it might be zero. So that's why. That's another reason.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pryor, for sharing your knowledge with us. On behalf of the Morgan State Student Government Association, we would like to present you with a gift. Here's a gift and then a certificate for you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, please help us welcome back Jeremiah Washington as he closes out with the alma mater.
Ooh, Jeremiah.
And then feel free to sing along as well. Okay. Fair Morgan, we love thee, so tried and so true. Our hearts at thy name thrill with pride. We owe thee allegiance, we pledge thee our faith which shall ever abide. We pledge thee our love, we pledge thee our faith, whatever the future may bring. And thus our devotion, fidelity to, and homage we pay as we sing. Fair Morgan, as onward the years quickly fly, and thou livest a memory sweet. We bring thee our laurels, whatever they be, and lay them with joy at thy feet. We pledge thee our love, we pledge thee our faith, whatever the future may bring. And thus our devotion, fidelity to, and homage we pay as we sing.
Thank you, Jeremiah. On behalf of the Senior Class Student Government Association, we would like to thank you all for attending. Hi, Provost Yu, how are you? And Provost Yu for attending the Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells Black History Month Convocation. It is our hope that everyone leaves here with more knowledge about our history and our culture, and I wish you all a great, safe Thursday. Thank you all for attending.